Welcome to the 10th anniversary of REIMAGINE 2021. Presented by Mousebelt. Coming up next.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to REIMAGINE 2021. I'm your co-host, Ashlie Meredith with Mousebelt, and today we're bringing you a very special version of our virtual blockchain conference series. This is our 10th anniversary event. We've been bringing you content and community virtually for over a year now, since March 2020, while some of us have been stuck at home, and we're just so grateful and lucky to have been able to build the following that we have and to interview such amazing guests. And today I am pleased to introduce our next guest, Erick Pinos. He's the president of the Blockchain Education Network and America's ecosystem lead at Ontology. Welcome, Erick. How are you doing today?
Good, Ashlie. Thanks for having me. The 10th conference. Wow, it's in a little over a year. You guys have been busy.
Absolutely. And we do about 30 to 40 interviews every time. So we're just trying to be right in the middle of these conversations, and it's been awesome to be able to do, our DeFi event right when DeFi was hot. We had, DeFi summer last year and an NFT event, 2 events ago, right when all of these artists and musicians were joining the space. So we've gotten to talk to some great people. Thank you so much for joining us. I was lucky enough to see you at Bitcoin 2021. Previously, the last time we saw each other was at ETH Denver, which was pretty much the last conference in the crypto space before lockdown. And then we kind of got to celebrate everyone being back together again in Miami. How was that for you, Bitcoin 2021?
It was overwhelming. I think after, spending a year just being at home and working online, Zoom calls and online conferences, suddenly being thrown back in a room with 10,000 other people and everyone wanting to catch up was definitely a lot, but it was very exciting. It was very exciting to see everyone in person, especially because so many developments had happened since the last time everyone saw each other in person. I mean, when we saw each other at ETH Denver, which, yeah, you're right. It was like, I think it was the last major conference. After that, I went to the MIT Bitcoin Expo, which wasn't even supposed to happen. They had canceled it, but then they squeezed it through because people had already booked their flights for it. But after that, everything was done. But back then, right, yield farming didn't even really exist, at least as we know it today. NFTs hadn't really taken off that much. There weren't governance tokens. It wasn't like a trend yet. So seeing all of that happen, all of that stuff, launch and really take over the space, and then meeting back in person after all that stuff has happened, it was incredible to really see how much everyone has changed, people changing jobs, people founding new companies, these projects going from nothing to really, really huge. And I really enjoyed it. I think it was a really great experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just so true that crypto never sleeps, not just the market, but the people building this technology. It seemed like people wanted to stay busy. They believed in this technology and were able to still build it from home. And we just saw a lot of amazing developments. I saw a lot of the students that are involved with Mousebelt University and probably Blockchain Education Network as well continue to find jobs and even become CEOs of companies. So it was really exciting to get all that news in Florida back in June. But you've been on the show twice, back when we first started. So thank you so much for being, longtime repeat guest, friend of the pod or the show, as we could say. So anyone who's just tuning in, head on over to our YouTube channel, REIMAGINE 2020. search for Erick's other interviews there, catch up with some of the stuff he was working on last year and a lot of other amazing interviews. But you are working at Ontology still. What's happened in the last year? What are some of the big milestones?
Yeah, so last September, we launched our DeFi lending platform, Wing Finance. So, it's almost been a year. It's like 11 months now. It's almost 1 year anniversary of that platform. So that's been exciting to see because that project really encompasses all of the exciting things that are happening in DeFi. First, just like traditional as far as like DeFi is concerned, over collateralized lending, not just on the Ontology chain, but also on the Ethereum chain. And we also launched it on the OKX chain as well. But beyond that, I think what's really been exciting about that is seeing the development of OScore, which is our decentralized credit scoring system, really expanded to become a decentralized reputation score. There's a lot of interesting applications for that. In our own platform, we use that to, the better people are at lending, right? The less DeFi degen they are, like how many times have you been liquidated? How many do you pay back your loans? Do you default on your loans? You can improve your reputation score, and that'll give you access to better yield farming rates and under collateralization in the platform. So that in itself is one really exciting use case. But recently we've been really talking with a lot of different projects to kind of see how it plays into the greater ecosystem. I think that the space as a whole is really starting to think about decentralized identity and how NFTs and how DeFi can play a part in determining your online identity. And that's very useful for DeFi projects interested in under collateralized loans based off of credit scores. It's also really interesting for all of these DAOs and governance projects that want to reward participants. So like people, you want to be able to reward users that vote, users that participate, users that hold an NFT of that project, users that have been users of the project for a long time. Very concretely, you can reward them with airdrops, right? Like there's a lot of projects that have airdropped their governance tokens within the past year. But I think even more, you could also reward them with like increased voting power or other perks and benefits. So I think right now we're in a really exciting period where we get to focus on the tools for providing that data and providing those those points of reference. And then we get to work with dApps that can use that data and say, okay, yeah, we want to make these decisions based off of that. So I'm really excited for that. And then one last thing that we also came up with is a new pool called the Any Pool. And so that's a lending pool for fixed rate loans. And it works for like regular coins, but it also works for NFTs. And so that's a really exciting concept, the idea of like NFT lending. That's something that I've explored a lot because I love NFTs and all of the stuff that's been happening with NFTs. But within bringing NFTs to DeFi, I think is a very exciting thing that we can do.
Yeah, is that like putting up an NFT as collateral in order to borrow against an NFT that you own, or actually loaning the NFT to someone?
The first one. I think the second one's interesting to explore and to do, especially for some of these projects like Axie Infinity. I know that they do that now because there's a lot of people that want Axies, but one Axie now costs like $300. So there's a lot of NFT lending that happens there. But the collateralization, I think, is very interesting, and so that's what we explore: being able to collateralize your NFT, borrow against it, kind of like a pawn shop or like a mortgage.
Absolutely, because people don't always want to have to sell their assets just to make purchases or make other kind of financial moves. Yeah, that's awesome. I think the exciting stuff that's happening with DeFi, you're really seeing the financial services that people want really making more sense being done in crypto and being easier to use. Where do you see that going in the next year? And what's Ontology's role going to be in that? How long do you think it will take to kind of match up to traditional finance or to really marry the two?
Yeah, well, within the next year, I think it should be interesting to see you can kind of tell where it'll be, like maybe 5-10 years, but within the next year, like who knows, like maybe some regulation will come out that will cut off like all these DeFi projects and slow the growth down, kind of cause another bear market. But I do think that overall, the trend for getting more people involved, I think for the most part is going to be through custodial services. So I think as like Coinbase and Gemini grow, and BlockFi, right? Like those kinds of companies, I think those are really the gateway for most people, right? You saw Coinbase go public, you saw Robinhood add crypto, Venmo added crypto, PayPal added crypto. And I think that, you know, it's clear that they want to, it makes sense as a business model for them to add DeFi lending, or, you know, add like earn interest from within the app. They get the funds and then they go and use the DeFi protocols, like lend it out and compound, lend it out and off, whatever, and then take a percentage and pass off the rest of the interest to, you know, the typical user. I think most people are going to be okay with that, right? That's how most people like to use their stuff. They want it to be very simple. They want a username, password, they want a dashboard, they just want to lend it, get some interest. But I think there's always going to be like that, the subculture of people that are, you know, like us, that we like going and using the protocol ourselves, like our own private key, maximize the amount of yield that we can get from it. But I think the cool thing about blockchain, right, and these dApps is that both of those solutions can coexist, because you have different kinds of audiences. So I think like both of those are going to increase. I don't think it's going to be like, you know, custodians are going to take over, Coinbase or Binance are going to take over. But I also don't think it's going to be the opposite, where everybody's going to switch to using decentralized finance directly.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're seeing more of these customer user experience focused companies that want to make it really easy for people to buy and sell crypto. We just interviewed the VP of markets at blockchain.com, and they've got lending now on their platform. And yeah, I think you're just going to see more and more of that, and it's going to be easier and easier for users to get in the door. And then if they want to experiment more and increase their yield, can go play around with some of these other protocols. So back in March, they actually had announced that their user base had tripled in the last 12 months. We've seen an incredible increase in interest in blockchain and these different apps. What kind of growth has Ontology seen? And even the Blockchain Education Network, what are you seeing as far as growth in the last 12 months?
There's been a lot of growth in the total value locked on Wing. So it's clear that people are interested in DeFi, right? And they want to lend, borrow on DeFi. We've seen a lot of cross-chain transactions as well. So we work with the Poly Network. And so the Poly Network is a project that lets you wrap Ethereum assets onto the Ontology chain. You can also wrap Ethereum assets onto the Neo chain, and you can wrap Neo and Ontology assets on each other's chains. They just added support for Binance Smart Chain as well. So, right, so like every new chain just adds like, you know, the ability to wrap the assets on those different chains. And there's a lot of demand for that, right? That flow. Because people want their favorite Ethereum tokens, but they don't want to pay Ethereum gas fees. So I think that's why projects like Ontology, Polygon, Solana, right, even Binance Smart Chain, what they really get right is the ability to like have those wrappers. I started messing around with a Tezos wrapper the other day, and it was like, okay, yeah, I can see that it's very clear that, like, you know, for any new blockchain or layer one that really wants to like compete in this market, you really need to have a DEX, a lending platform, and then a wrapper. So like something to be able to wrap people's assets, because they want to use their favorite assets. So we really focused on that. And so we have those three things. And so we've seen a lot of growth of our protocol there. We're working on EVM compatibility as well. So people can deploy, you know, EVM-based smart contracts directly, on the Ontology chain. I think that that's important, because I think that it's become clear that EVM, or, you know, Solidity, is really the standard now. Which is funny, because we all thought that, we all thought that it would be an advantage to have smart contracts being able to be made in Python or JavaScript, because that's the language that developers already know. But I think enough time has passed now that Solidity has really become the standard, right? So it just makes sense that, like, if you want to develop on blockchain, you have to learn Solidity. And that's okay. That's actually not as big of a barrier as we all thought it would be. And that's what I've been seeing with the Blockchain Education Network, is that a lot of students are on board with the idea. They want to learn Solidity because they want to get these jobs, and they want to be able to work for DeFi projects. We've seen a lot of companies want to hire students, but we've also seen a lot of bounties pop up. A lot of these DeFi projects have launched their grants programs, and they're giving out big grants for anybody that wants to come in and help develop. And so we've been focusing on getting students more involved in that. So that's been really exciting to see. But yeah, we've seen students from all over getting more involved. We've seen students, in other countries. We've focused a lot on international content. We have our students volunteer to create content, translate content into different languages. And those lessons are everything from intro to DeFi, intro to Solidity, and intro to NFTs, right? Like we have a lot of students that are interested in NFTs as well, and intro to DAOs. So like getting involved in governance, getting involved in voting, and getting involved in participating in all these projects.
Yeah. So what again were those three things that any new layer one protocol should really be focusing on? I just think that's a good tidbit for people to think about when they're exploring protocols and their development milestones, and whether they think that a project is focusing on the right things.
Well, I think this is my opinion, right? Because I'm not sure, I could be wrong, but I think it's a DEX, a lending platform, and a wrapper. If you have those three things, then the project can grow, right? Like it'll naturally grow. DEX, because you need to be able to swap assets directly on the chain. A lending platform, because you have to introduce that level of like DeFi where people can lend and borrow. Otherwise, people are just trading, right? But now you have a whole new level of strategies that people can do. People can short, people can collateralize, people can earn yield. And the last is the wrapper, because if you have a DEX and a DAO, but it's just like a bunch of like new projects that don't have any brand value yet, you're not going to get that much attention. But if you have the wrapper, and this is what I noticed because I noticed this with Polygon, right? That they had some users, but then they had quick swap. So the DEX came in, then they had the wrapper. I guess the wrapper came first, that you can wrap assets over to quick swap. So you can trade your favorite assets right on the chain for really low gas fees. And then they had a lending platform. The OV came in, right, and launched on them. So it really took off. Same thing with Solana, same thing we're seeing that now a bit with Tezos. Right? We saw that with Ontology. We have a lot of total value lock there now. But yeah, I think that those are the three things that an L1 would need to stay competitive in this market.
Absolutely. So you've been playing around a bit with Tezos?
Yeah. Well, our director of tech, Jeremy Guzman, he's the Tezos mastermind. He's been buying NFT colors and all this plenty farming and doing all this stuff on Tezos, and he pushed me to do it. So I did it for a bit, and I was like, oh wow, there is a whole ecosystem here, and it's growing rapidly. Like he brought me back into it.
Awesome. Yeah, we just interviewed the CEO of a company called One Of. So anyone who's just tuning in, this is Reimagine 2020. Head over to our YouTube channel to check out some of our other interviews. But One Of is a music NFT platform, billing itself as like the first green NFT platform, because they're building on Tezos. And when I wanted to play around minting NFTs, this is back when like gas fees, it was going to cost me like $100 to mint an NFT, and I'm just trying to do it for fun. And I'm like, this is a barrier for people who are trying to learn about this stuff. But with Tezos, it's like 4 cents or something. So that's how I first got into that.
Nice. I think fortunately the gas fees on ETH don't seem to be too bad right now. And with the London hard fork, it seems like things are going to get better. I just minted an NFT the other day. So it was my birthday on Monday, and the Ben
Happy
team
birthday.
that was in Portugal. Thank you. The Ben team that was in Portugal, they're like an Airbnb there. They threw a birthday party that I wasn't at, but they sent me a video with a cake with my name on it. They're like, Eric, happy birthday. And they like sang the birthday. And so I was like, oh, let me show my appreciation in a very Eric way. So I minted it as an NFT. It was only $20 like in gas fees. So I'm like, okay, yeah, it's worth it for like this. But that was fun because now it's like as an NFT. I'm like, don't tell me like this isn't fun. Like, you know what? It's just fun. Like, it's just fun minting NFTs. And Chris Dixon wrote like, in his blog like a long time ago, saying that the next big thing is going to look like a toy. And that's what the internet did. That's how all of these like new innovations, Snapchat and everything, like it's just a toy. And then it became like really big. So I think it's the same thing with NFTs. Like we shouldn't discount the fact that, just because it's fun, that it's probably like for children or like not something that's going to be like revolutionary.
Absolutely. I love that. And I tend to agree with it. The next best thing is going to look like a toy. Speaking of like kind of the next big thing, What do you think the most significant developments in the blockchain crypto sector has been this year?
I think this year, definitely in DAOs, because there's been a lot more participation in in governance, in delegates, in meta delegates. There's been a lot of controversy, right? Like, for example, at the Uniswap, the DeFi Education Fund, everything that's been happening with that. So I think people are really starting to pay attention to, who holds governance tokens, how are governance tokens allocated, how is voting done, how is participation done, in these big protocols. And so every project now, every DeFi project seems to be moving towards that direction, having more robust tools for managing their DAOs. Even like, it also, like, this is what gives the value to the majority of these tokens, right? Like, the majority of these tokens build themselves as governance tokens. Therefore, the value of it is just how robust the governance is. Look at Gitcoin, right? Because they launched their governance token, and immediately there was a very important decision for them to make, which was like, what should they do with the Akita tokens? I think it was Akita, right? But Vitalik sent like all of his Akita tokens that the Akita founders sent him. They sent it to the Gitcoin treasury, and it's like, well, what do we do with like this millions of dollars that was just dropped into our treasury? So I think that it's definitely been very important this year. How do we do these DAOs? How do we do this governance? How do we grow that? Bankless launched their DAO as well, right? Like, all these projects are launching DAOs now. But I think that's been a big thing. NFTs as well, but I think NFTs has been more like artists coming in. Last year was more like art. I think I don't even remember if that was last year. Everything's been going by really fast. There was the art phase. I think now we're more in like the NFT avatar phase, right? Like the CryptoPunks, the Bored Apes, like all these NFTs that people want to have as their profile pictures. I think there's kind of been a little bit of a resurgence around that.
Yeah, absolutely. The governance piece is always so interesting to me because I'm interested in political philosophy and organizational psychology. And so it's like, with the transparency that blockchain allows, like, imagine if a corporation that you own stocks in announced to the world their org chart and how they make decisions, and you were able to like contribute to how you felt that process should go, and complain about it online and give feedback, and the evolution just happens so quickly because of that constant feedback. So definitely really excited to see how people collectively decide to govern these projects.
And Shapeshift did too, right? Shapeshift dissolved their company and became a DAO as well, right? So it's huge. This is a trend, and this is getting bigger. Big projects are doing this. So yeah, and your background is perfect for this. And I think it's exciting that the space now, people that have similar backgrounds can now feel like they have a big role in the space, like a very important role. Because I feel like for a long time, at least through the Blockchain Education Network, we've had a lot of students come to us, and if you're a coder, pretty straightforward what to do. But we have students that come to us that don't know how to code. Go learn Solidity. Yeah, exactly. We have a lot of students that come to us that don't know how to code, and they don't know what to do. They're like, how do I get involved? What can I do? Like, I don't know what to do. Now there's a really good way for them to get involved in the DAOs, get involved in the community, to be a governance champion, get involved in that side.
Absolutely. So speaking of Ben, Mousebell, we have a university program as well. We've interacted with students from 100 universities in 24 different countries, and you were really focused on encouraging innovation and incubating startups. We launched a startup school in January, just online, giving some educational resources. I post some motivational blogs about entrepreneurship, leadership, communication. But Ben is doing a lot of the same stuff and has a lot of exciting initiatives going on. So tell us how the last year has been for the Blockchain Education Network.
Yeah, it's been very exciting. As mentioned, right, there's been a big focus on getting students involved, non-technical students involved in some way. And the two main ways that we found to get non-technical students involved has been one through the governance. So we've been helping a lot of the blockchain clubs set up set up delegates for Uniswap, for Compound, for OV, even for Decentraland. I'm really pushing for Decentraland. I'm like, guys, come join me in the metaverse and do some voting there. We actually partnered with Decentraland University, and we hosted some workshops in in I don't want to say virtual reality because it is virtual reality, right? But it's not VR yet. Like it wasn't a headset. It was just like on your computer. But that'll be coming soon. So I'm actually really excited about that. But yeah, we hosted some events there, some workshops, how to get involved in DAOs, how to get involved in voting, how to set up a governance, delegate for your club for participation in these big projects. We also started our own meta delegate. So, if a club or if a student doesn't feel like they have the time or the resources to run their entire own delegate, because there is a level of responsibilities to it, they can just join our meta delegate where students come together intercollegiately and then do these discussions. And then we host them in English, we host them in Spanish, we host them in Turkish, to help like get students from different countries more involved in that. That's one way for the governance people. Then, if students want to be traders, we launched a crypto fund on token sets. So it's an entirely on-chain fund. Students can come, get involved as student analysts, do some trades, do some reports. We partnered with Messari. So Messari is giving free Messari Pro memberships to some students. So students can make their reports like really, really good. And our hope with that is that then the students can apply to real hedge funds in the space and then be able to point to that on their resume. We really focus on like, how can we give students hands-on experience that they can then go and apply to the jobs on our jobs board, our partners, our alumni. Because what we're seeing is that, it's not so much about pedigree anymore or like what classes you took. These, especially in blockchain, they want to know, what have you done already? Like what projects have you been involved in? Like show us your ether scan, like how many projects have you been in? How many things have you done? How many NFTs, how many times you got in rug pulls? Like I think people are really interested. How many times have you voted with your wallet? So we're really trying to help students build that on-chain resume so that they can, then stand out and then get these positions.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of blockchain and kind of owning tokens or this transaction history and the transparency is that you kind of have this record, this proof of these learning experiences. And as an educator, I'm interested in educational technology applications of blockchain, and like the pie in the sky vision is that every learning experience you have is like an NFT that you own forever that you can prove to an employer. But participating in DAOs and voting, there's a record of all this stuff you've done, and you'll be able to show a potential employer, here's the projects I've contributed to. So definitely encourage students tuning in to, check out Massachusetts University, check out Blockchain Education Network, get your hands dirty, right? Get that real world hands-on experience. And you don't have to be technical to do that. You were saying that there's a lot of interest from students in Turkey, and you have a couple of clubs there. I just thought that was kind of interesting, and maybe our viewers would like to hear more about what the crypto scene is like in Turkey, because we actually have quite a large audience tuning into Reimagine on YouTube or some other streaming platforms coming from Turkey. So I was surprised to see that.
Yeah, I think Turkey has been really interesting because, I was definitely trying to push for a big focus in Latin America. And so we've been doing that, right, like with a couple of clubs that we have in Colombia and Puerto Rico and Argentina. But Turkey kind of came to us. So these clubs that were started by themselves in Turkey, they reached out to us and they're like, hey, we want to join Ben. We really want to kickstart Ben Turkey and, just go right to it. So set them up, onboarded them. They've been participating a lot in translating content. So, the courses that were created in English by like MIT and Berkeley, they're translated into Turkish so they can kind of not have to reinvent the wheel from scratch. And that's also a really good learning experience we found. So for, our leaders that we have in Turkey, they got up to speed with the latest blockchain developments themselves by translating the content, right? Because I think that the best way to learn something is to teach it to someone else, because that's something you can't fake. You can always fake a quiz, you can always fake like a project, last minute, like essay, whatever. But when you have to teach something to someone else, you have to actually know what it is. So they're learning by teaching each other. And then that's just bringing in so many new people into the network. But yeah, Turkey has been explosive in terms of growth. I think a lot of it has to do with the state of the Turkish lira, right, which has been crashing a lot. And you can see it's evidenced by, or you can see that the demand is evidenced by, I think even for Binance, a large percentage of their users Turkey is like one of the largest regions for traders and users of Binance. So it's clear that there's a lot of demand in there specifically. But we're also thinking about the other countries. We do a lot of stuff in Africa now. We've hosted some events in person in Ghana and Nigeria. They're really interested in Cardano. I think Cardano has invested a lot in the education for that country. Hyperledger has invested a lot in India. Obviously like all the Asian blockchain projects in China and Japan and Korea. So I think it's been interesting how like layer ones have like tried to carve their niches by like targeting different regions. But I think ultimately it's about teaching students what it is that they want to learn and then letting them decide for themselves what tools are right for the job.
And it's been great to see, I think, since I got started in the space, kind of working with universities, and you've been doing it longer than me, and kind of talking with these partners about the importance of investing in education and, putting some of this, especially when we're in a bull market, putting some of this money back into the community, how almost every protocol out there now has really great grant programs, not just for developer bounties, but also to create educational resources or translate materials or create marketing materials or be community managers. So I just see a lot of these protocols now seeing that we need to develop our own talent to really have the innovation that we want to see in the blockchain space.
Yeah, and you said you have a lot of your audience in Turkey. What other regions do you have a lot of audience in that people wouldn't have expected that there's a lot of crypto interest?
I would have to think about it. I know we have a lot of connections in Korea. We've been building on the Icon platform, which is from Korea, and pushed one of the first.
And you were at the Bitcoin Center there.
Yeah, pushed one of the first apps on that protocol years ago, and are working on their DeFi platform now. So just doing really like it was so interesting years ago living there, where 20% of the population owned crypto as opposed to maybe like 1% of the US. That's probably changed in the last year, right? As just even awareness of crypto in the US has gone way up. But to have so much adoption, it's really interesting to be in those environments, right? Where it's a lot more common and people know a lot more about it. But you're in Puerto Rico now. So for anyone who's just tuning in, we also did a great interview with former presidential candidate Brock Pierce, who has obviously, made huge pushes to invest more in Puerto Rico. It's kind of a crypto tax haven. What's going on there, and how are you involved? How's Ontology involved? How's Ben involved?
Yeah, Puerto Rico has been really interesting. So I moved here back in March. Before that, I was just like in New Jersey. Moved here, got involved with the community here. It was very different than it was in 2018. So initially I was here in 2018 as part of a research project back when I was at MIT. It was a project on renewable energy credits and microgrids. So like financing for microgrids through cryptocurrencies. And this was an MIT Digital Currency Initiative project. So I got to go down here in 2018, right as the bull market was ending. So there were a lot of people that moved to Puerto Rico for Act 60 when it was new, but then it was mostly like traders, right? Just like people who made money trading and whatever, but then they went back after like the market crashed. And so they no longer had that money. But I think what's different around this time is that a lot of people, similarly, a lot of people are moving down here for Act 60, but I see a lot more builders and a lot more like entrepreneurs that are moving down here. People that either made money through starting companies, or they're moving here anticipating that they're going to make money. So they want to build their company down here. And something I didn't know that I learned recently from like some of my friends that are down here is that, there's not only tax benefits for individual cryptocurrency investors, but there's also a lot of tax benefits for young entrepreneurs and startup founders that want to start their company down here in Puerto Rico. So that's been really exciting to see. And that's something we really want to help people become aware of. Pushing a lot of the infrastructure investment, and the growing community around here, I think has been really, really helpful for that. I didn't expect to find such a community down here, but I did. And now it's been really exciting to like work with them and talk with them. We've been talking a lot with the Puerto Rico Blockchain Trade Association, hosting events. We want to host workshops to educate both the students that are on the island and get them involved, into all of these great programs. but also talking to government officials and legislators, right, to like kind of keep the status going, right, and to kind of keep the investment coming in and keep the infrastructure development coming in.
Absolutely. Well, that sounds really exciting, and you know, hopefully, if all goes well, sounds like there's a couple of conferences coming in December, so hopefully some crypto people can come enjoy the nice weather in Puerto Rico in December and learn more about the scene there. To round out the segment, you know, 10th anniversary, been doing this for a year, kind of seen a lot of ups and downs. What do you see coming down the path for the next year, either with Ontology or Ben, or just the crypto space in general?
Well, okay, so for Ontology, I think our biggest next thing is that we're launching our version of the EVM, or our EVM compatibility. So that's really going to make it very easy for a lot of our partners that we've worked with and talked to that have wanted to launch an Ontology, but there's been a barrier because their smart contracts are already written in Solidity, right? And to launch on us, you'd have to translate it into Python or into JavaScript. So not having that barrier anymore, now with Solidity support, we're going to be able to get a lot of our partners to launch their dApps on Ontology. So I'm excited for that, and just kind of how that will grow, over the next year. And for Blockchain Education Network, right, getting more students involved in the platform, really growing, really scaling. Like, we launched our platform, so we have like a dashboard. It's like a Coursera type platform. Students can come and take courses and learn. Then we have the groups with the jobs boards and with alumni networks, and like we even have a professor network, right? We've been hosting these like professor roundtables. So it's been very exciting to see more professors get interested in more universities and faculty, because as I'm sure it's very difficult to interface with universities, and they're very slow to respond. And back in the early days, they were even hostile, right? Like, they were shutting down student clubs. They didn't want student clubs running. So for now that it's finally changed, now we're getting like emails from deans that are like, we want a blockchain class at our school in Jamaica or like wherever. And it's like, oh, great, this is great. I think we're in a good spot. Absolutely.
Well, so for anyone who wants to find you, where can they find you, and who are you most hoping to hear from?
So you can find me on Twitter. It's just at my name. And then, Blockchain Education Network is at blockchainedu.org, and Ontology is at ont.io. And, who are you interested in hearing from the most? I mean, really everyone. Like, I think that I'm really excited to hear from people that wouldn't have normally come into the space, but are now getting interested in the space. Artists, people that study like philosophy, economy, people that are not what you would think of as like a traditional crypto person, who would either be like not a coder, not a trader, not a, entrepreneurs are always welcome, right? But like, I feel like we've had a lot of entrepreneurship, and we've seen a lot of cool stuff there. I'm really excited to see a lot more artists get involved, a lot more gamers getting involved. So if people are just getting started out with that and they don't know where to go, I'd love to talk to more of those people.
Absolutely. Well, for anyone who's just tuning in, this is Reimagine 2021 Virtual Blockchain Conference Series. We're bringing you our 10th anniversary event, and we've been speaking with Erick Pinos, the president of the Blockchain Education Network and the America's Ecosystem Lead at Ontology. Thanks again for joining us, Erick.
Thank you.
Stay tuned for more, everybody.